Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to, I don't know if this is a vlog, this is probably not a vlog, welcome back to a video. My name is Kyle. This is about my WRX. So my WRX 3.0 project is officially in the works. I've broken this project down into three major parts. We have the planning and design, we have the tear down and prep, and we have the rebuild. The planning and design part is pretty much done. I gave my designer Adian, also known as Corsa Auto Design, my ideas, my vision. I made like a pretty lame Photoshop mock-up of what I'm looking for, and he's gonna take it and he's gonna run with it and make it perfect. He's gonna bring my vision to life. Now, the good part is, even though the design part is not completely done, it's like 90% done, I can still work on the second part of the project, which is the teardown and the prep. I started off with my wheels. For 3.0, I know my wheels are gonna get either powder coated or replaced with a different set entirely. To prepare for that, I had to take them off the car and swap them to my stock wheels. I learned a lesson about that small process. It should have taken probably an hour, but it took me a little bit longer because it was freezing outside when I did it, and because I ran into a few snags. The few snags being my lug nuts being over tightened and me completely shearing one of my studs off the car. Slight issue, snapped the wheel stud. It seems that it was too torqued on there, and I literally just, oops. So what did this teach me? One, get a torque wrench. I had to replace one of my tires over the summer, and the wheel was remounted with a impact wrench, like a pneumatic impact wrench. And for those of you who don't know, it's that gun, and it goes, it's really good for fastening and breaking loose nuts and bolts, but the problem is it's not very precise. I believe the scientific term for the unit of measurement for the force of an impact gun is ugga-duggas. My wheel was mounted with at least 8 ugga-duggas, and that's way more ugga-duggas than you really need or want. So in the process of removing my wheel, I had to use at least 8 to 9 ugga-duggas to break the nut loose. The problem with this is because it was over ugga-dugged in the first place, I over ugga-dugged it off, and I broke the stud clean off with my manly man muscles. I was actually jumping on the tire iron, but that was enough to break the stud, so now I have to replace my studs on my wheel. And instead of just replacing one, I figured I'm gonna enlist the help of Tony, also known as StradaWorks, to replace all of my wheel studs with the ones that with these wheel studs. They are the standard length wheel studs. They were recommended by my buddy Carmelo, Full Metal WRX. All my wheel studs will be replaced. It's more of a peace of mind thing, you know? So the lesson learned in that is get a torque wrench. That way when you're tightening your lug nuts, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this, but when you tighten stuff on a car or anything that needs specific torque, get a torque wrench. That way you're within a % of that suggested torque rating. If you over tighten something, you can snap it. If you under tighten something, it can fall off via the vibrations of your car, via just time use, you know? So get a torque wrench. I have to get one. If you have any good torque wrench recommendations, please drop it in the comments, because if not, I'm just gonna go on YouTube and find one that is highly rated, I guess. 2, get an impact wrench or an impact driver. Now why? Why would you get one? I just talked about the dangers of over ugga-duggaing something. Reason being, busting nuts. I myself am a pretty good nut buster. So good, in fact, that I busted the nut clean off my wheel. You need or should get an impact wrench or impact driver because it saves time and effort. If I use an impact wrench to remove the stuck lug, it would have broken it off with much less effort on my part. I wouldn't have spent 20 minutes jumping on the tire iron. It would have just broken off, and I would have been like, okay, well, now I know I need one without being out of breath. And it just saves time in terms of, you know, stubborn lug nuts. If you've ever changed a tire, you know it can take a long time to break them loose with just hand tools and breaker bars. Having an impact wrench or impact driver mitigates some of that by doing the jumping for you, pretty much. After I busted my nut, I found this Milwaukee impact driver on sale from Home Depot for 99 bucks. It's usually 170 or something. So I really couldn't say no to it. Now, this is not an impact wrench. This is an impact driver, so it's not really recommended that you use it for lug nuts. You can pick up these adapters that can let you run a socket set. I use it for removing smaller things like my wing or like stuck nuts, but I did test it on my lug nuts, and it actually was able to break the lug nuts loose. And that was after I retightened them on the stock wheels. Just another lesson or recommendation I picked up from tearing my WRX down. This video is not sponsored by Milwaukee, but if any tool company wants to like make my life easier and help me bust nuts, you know, hit me up. We'll talk. Okay, so after I got my wheels off and swapped them back to stock, the next big thing that I had to tackle, I would say, was my wing. Now, by then, I already had my little impact driver, so taking it off was pretty easy, but that whole process came with its own lessons. First of all, let me just say that removing the wing was much, much easier than putting it on, just because, you know, you don't have to drill any new holes, and I guess putting it back on will be even easier because all the holes are pre-drilled. Again, there are lessons that come with taking it off that I think you should really consider if you want to do a big wing on your car. The first thing I would say is get good hardware. My Battle Era wing came with its own hardware, which I used most of. I think I lost one or two at the shop that day, so I had to use other ones. Most of them were stainless steel, but some of the components were not stainless steel. Why is this an issue? One word: rust. I had the wing on my car for 2 years. I think a couple of months after getting it mounted, I realized that the washers that were included were starting to rust. They were on the underside of the car, so I didn't really think of it much. You know, I painted over it, I cleaned the rust off, whatever, and I left it. The problem with that is that rust doesn't really go away. It kind of starts to spread to other components. You know, what started off as a rusty washer eventually spread onto my paint, because whenever it rained, it would like take some of that rusty water and run down the trunk. It wasn't just the washer, you know, some of the nuts included started to rust. I didn't have any problem taking them off, really. I could have if it was fused to the actual screw, but luckily I didn't have that, and I also had my little impact wrench, so that was helpful.
Yo, this thing is a game changer.
The issue was once it was completely off, I could see the leftovers of what exactly rusted and how bad.
Look at this goodness we got going. You can eat off this thing.
And I recommend that if you're gonna go and install a wing, which is more often than not a permanent addition to your car, I would recommend getting some higher quality hardware. I feel like I could have saved myself a lot of time and headache if I just spent a little bit more money at the start and ordered some hardware that's meant to be exposed to the elements, you know? And the second lesson I learned from taking my wing off is to use insulation. I think 2 years ago when we were putting the wing on, we were so excited to get it on that we were just like, all right, let's just send it. And we drilled the holes, and we slapped the wing on, tightened everything, and the wing was on, and I drove home. The issue with that is that it's not a perfect seal. The trunk has a curvature to it. The mounting plate for the wing is a flat piece of metal. So even though you screw into it tight, there's still gonna be some gap. You know, that's how water gets in, that's how rust happens. If I were to do everything again, I would 110% put a little vinyl gasket or a little rubber or foam gasket between the actual trunk and the mounting plate.
I definitely need to put like a rubber gasket or something. Luckily it's wiping off, but Jesus, that's nasty.
Even just vinyl would have honestly helped a ton in preventing rust and wear. The way that works is the trunk goes here. You put a thin piece of vinyl between the mounting plate and the trunk. That way when you put the screws and hardware through, the vinyl actually hugs the screw and water doesn't get in, and it'll seal some of the gaps that water gets into and therefore goes into the trunk and starts to rust the inside of the trunk and gets to the washers and everything. Definitely use some form of insulation if you're going to install a wing. When I reinstall this wing, I'm definitely going to put vinyl, foam, whatever I can find to prevent that from happening again. I am now set back a little bit because I actually have to go clean that rust off. Just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing a big wing setup on your car. Also, if you're curious, taking a wing off is probably a 15-minute project, even shorter if you do everything cleanly the first time. Definitely spend your time on the install, so that way anytime you have to take it off or reinstall it is a breeze. It took me about, I don't know, like 2 hours to get my wing completely off, but that was because me and the boys, also known as Milton, Anthony, and Avi, were all also trying to work on getting a carbon fiber hood on Milton's GTI. Spoiler alert, we didn't get it on because a deer actually hit Milton's car a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, and it actually knocked the alignment bracket out of place. It bent it just enough so that way we couldn't install it properly. Literally prevented us from installing his hood by 1 inch to 1/2 inch. Otherwise the hood would have cracked. So that took a lot of time and finagling, and we didn't succeed in that. I guess it's the journey and being outside with your boys in 30-degree weather trying to mount car parts is where the memories are. It is currently, what's the temperature right now? It's 31 degrees, so it's a little bit chilly, but we're working. Even if you don't have a shop, you just need some friends and maybe alcohol. The good thing is the wing is completely off now. And that's been it as far as teardown so far. I still have to do my diffuser, my lip. I have to work on some things for the bumper for a future install. I definitely would be much further in my progress. I would have probably had the diffuser off by now and the wrap. But the problem is it snowed like a lot.
We got a little bit of snow. Nice. I put some paint protection film on the wing holes. That way water doesn't get in there.
That prevented me from getting my car out and to a shop where I can actually take my wrap off and take the diffuser off. But as far as the wrap goes, I just need a sheltered place with a heat gun, and I can definitely get on that. So, just to recap on what I learned from tearing my WRX down, part 1. Torque wrench. Torque to spec. Get an impact wrench or driver. Use good hardware. Prioritize the install, doing it right the first time. That way, whenever you have to undo or redo it, it's much easier on you. And 5, if a deer hits your friend's GTI, you might not be able to mount a hood. And be careful when you bust your nuts. I'm going to catch you guys on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this quick update. Let me know what you're excited for my build. If you're in a build yourself, let me know what you plan on doing to it, and I can give you feedback or hype you up, whatever you need. I'm here. Till the next time, thank you for watching. My name's Kyle. Remember that things are good, but you can always make them better. That's what this whole channel is about. So I'm trying to do my car. I'll see you guys next time.
If I gotta die, I'm going like the greats. I don't plan it, but I live like it's today. Pop a quarter off a quarter and I'm straight. She can't stand me, but she came here anyway. If I gotta die, I'm going like the greats.